us and protecting us, and hearing them just say that, someone else will deal with it, or that's a problem for the future or something. It's not a future problem, it's a now problem. And so I'm here right now because I am scared and I want to do something, and I don't want it to be a future problem that never gets solved and just happens. And instead I'm here because freeway expansions suck, and they're only worsening the climate crisis, and ODOT making these decisions is not right. They just want money and power, and that's not the world that I want to see. So yeah, that's kind of why I'm here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Hello. My name is Micah. I'm 20, speaking of pronouns, and I am the community engagement coordinator for Neighbors for Clean Air. Neighbors for Clean Air is currently engaged in a lawsuit with Sunrise and No More Freeways and the Elliott neighbor. The ways that ODOT has gone about expanding the Rosewater Freeway. Initially, my organization does a lot of work in anti-diesel advocacy. A lot of people don't know how bad there is. It's the top 5 counties in the nation. Clackamas, Multnomah County, and Washington County all list in the bottom 2% of the entire United States. We have this, image that's fed to us of Oregon being a place that cares about nature, about, the experience of being outside. When in actuality, all of our infrastructure is counter to that. And so the story that I'm bringing today is one that I heard this week. And it's about Interstate Ave built very long ago at all. I mean, if we look at the history of Oregon, my dad has only lived three lifetimes since Oregon began. And the interstate was built after I've got all the dates in there. So we know. Does everyone here know that Interstate Avenue was built on a predominantly black community? That was like a thriving cultural center, and they put the highway through it to light the neighborhood, and light it means to make it a place that is unlivable. And then the banks went around people's homes, and they knocked on their door, and they said, it's not safe for you to live here anymore, and so we need you to move. Highways are active displacement. Highways are climate violence. Highways are making it so that people have unlivable environments. And then the and heavy and the construction equipment that it takes to build the highways, all of that is what contributes to our air being so bad. Highways are a strategy used by the state to take land and continue to build up colonial expansion. And this week, there was a man who was sitting on my porch. He's a man who comes by quite often and checks out the free box that's in my front yard. And he stayed on our porch for about 3 days. And he's black, and he told me that his parents' lease was taken to build Emmanuel Hospital. In history, these things are happening. And so when we're seeing an expansion, part of a middle school for a predominantly black community, we're continuing to see environmental racism. And so that's why I know we're here today, right? Is pinpoint one piece of the infrastructure that continues to create inequity. And inequity is equity is what people have, their land and their money. It is an actual imbalance of the resources that people have that is race-based. And so I'm really, really glad that these strikes have continued for a long period of time, although I know it's been very exhausting for the teenagers who have to come up here every single week, right? Every other week, make time out of their schedule to say, stop doing what you're doing, like duh. But I also want to say that there are multiple strategies that we can generate together. There are multiple strategies that we can generate together, because just as highways are one way, that the colonial experiment, right, is continuing to build up infrastructure that is unsafe and unsustainable, this is one strategy to fight that. And so another strategy is to, go back to the bank records and say, whose houses did they take from and who can we give the land back to? Who owned the land before it was a highway? And who lived here before unsustainable conditions were built? Because this world is regenerative. This world is sustainable. This world is meant to keep humans alive and to keep every piece that we are connected with together in an amazing, collaborative way. And ODOT's fucking it up. That's all I have to say.
Woo!
And anyone wants to speak next? I want to do a song. Do you guys remember We Rise? Okay, it's not kind of. Okay. So we'll do one of the verses and we'll just sing it. We rise up from the wreckage, rise, Spirit to guide us, rise.
Today I want to talk about how much I hate driving. Oh my god. I never wanted to drive. for those of you who don't know, I live in Boring. There is no other option to get around besides driving. There's no sidewalks, there's no bike lanes, there's just 55-mile-an-hour country roads. Eventually, end of 2019, I think, I don't know, I decided, okay, if I ever want to like get a higher education, get a job, do literally anything with my life, I have to learn to drive. Did that, got my license earlier this year, and I still hate it. I hate it every day. Every time I drive, I think I would rather be taking public transportation right now. I still cannot independently navigate my community, even though I have my license. It'll cost over $6,000 to get a wheelchair lift put into our van. On SSI, I make less than that in a year. So, what else? Yeah, I don't know, like, I'd like to think I'm a good driver, even though driving will never be safe. But it's like, literally, it's like yesterday, driving my mom for her doctor's appointment, it's like I was getting passed like every 5 seconds, like people going like 10 to 15 miles an hour over the speed limit. It's just like so stressful, and I would just rather not have to do it. And I really echo what Yukai was saying about the need for intercity transit. My mom and I have to come into Portland a lot to access the services we need. And yeah, it would just be so nice to not have to drive to access the things that we need. There's so many people who cannot drive at all. The driving is just not an option. And everybody still needs to be able to navigate our community safely. So yeah, I am out here because I hate driving. I really want to see rural public transit happen. And I also just, don't want my county to be, my entire county to be under an evacuation order like it was last year. What else? Yeah, I don't know, but even though it's been 13 weeks, I just have to say I continue to find so much hope and inspiration along the way and with all of you. Sometimes it feels like we're just yelling into the void, and then people like Governor Brown go, but I share your sense of urgency, and we're just like, Jesus, not again. But, I mean, like yesterday, I heard one of my conservative county commissioners, like, actually advocate for rural public transit. Again, acknowledge climate change, all in the same day, very big day for him. So, I can feel change slowly happening. We just need to keep pushing because it needs to happen a lot faster. So, yeah, thank you all for being here. Good job. No.
Hi, so Lena's taking some cool pictures right now, but she's taking a really cool shot. We're going to continue having the open mic, so we really want you all to come up and speak. But if people could come kind of behind, in front of the semicircle behind the microphone here. So if people come over and you can hold your signs and form kind of a semicircle behind the speaker and like around the speaker, I think. And do you have Alright. If you form like a semicircle, so kind of, you don't have to be like in front of each other, just like form a C that goes like around like that. More like a circle, so you can come a little more around. Alright. So if you guys want to come and form more of a semicircle this way, so we're not layered up over there, that'd be awesome. So less of the layers, more of the artistic shot here, yeah. Yes. Yeah. Alright, where are you? What do you think?
Oh, this looks great. Just like, yeah, you can be in a circle. Just around. Okay, that was good.
Alright. Open mic is still open.
This is great.
Who wants to share?
Yeah.
Yeah!
colonialism. And it's very interesting. One of the first things that they do when they start to transition is displace people from their land. While doing so, make it so that they are forced into situations. And colonialism highly reflects that, especially for people who are BIPOC and Indigenous, Black, and also disabled people. Something that I come to these events for is because I am a Black Portlander. I'm a 5th generational Black Portlander, and we've been here since Vanport, another form of displacement. And one of the things that I don't think people realize is that a lot of these freeways and freeway expansions they displaced Black Portlanders. If you look back, Black Portlanders have existed, and it is very frustrating to see freeways. When my grandparents talked about in the same area as freeways, there were Black barber shops and Black homes, Black businesses, and now they're covered in freeways. And then on the sides, there's like vegan donut shops and thrift stores. And freeways are another form of colonialism. They're a continuation of colonialism, and it is always so critical for us to recognize that climate change and racism and colonialism are all intertwined. You cannot get climate justice or climate action without including the people most affected and also making up for the harm that people were affected by. Because communities of color are displaced by climate change, and they have been displaced by climate change. So that's just why I show up, is because my community is under attack by climate change and has been under attack by climate change since we were stolen from a land that we should have never been stolen from, and since our land was taken from people who should have never taken our land from. So, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay.
Hi, I'm Aurelia. I use she, her pronouns. I'm 14 years old. I want to talk about the first demand, an environmental impact statement on the Rose Quarter Freeway expansion. Because I was talking to my friend Aubrey the other day, and she mentioned something about Portland being the liberal capital of the world. And I'm like, no, we're expanding a freeway and calling it restorative justice. We're not the liberal capital of the world. And I was thinking about that a lot more. And so, ODOT, they're saying that capping the freeway will restore Albina, and that may be partially true, but I think something that's not talked about very much is that capping the freeway doesn't get rid of the pollution. It's still polluting. And I mean, you can cap the freeway without widening it. But my point is that the freeway caps aren't going to get rid of the pollution. And if you're building all these buildings on top of the freeway, sure, you're restoring Albina, but it's going to be pollution. It's gonna be, as my dad said, a toxic nightmare. And I mean, we don't know that there's buildings of building.
You're doing good.
Take a breath. Take a breath.
Justice to build all these buildings, all these houses, places for people to live on the freeway caps, and that how is that restorative justice if they're going to just be bought by the rich white people? Woo! That's something that's not being talked about, and they're painting this freeway expansion as anti-racism and even something that's good for the climate, but no, it's not good for the climate because it's not going to reduce congestion. There's never been a freeway expansion that's reduced congestion. You all know this. We've said this every time, but I'm just saying it again because it's very important. And the thing that's being talked about a lot is the school. the Harriet Tubman Middle School is right next to the freeway, and that's very bad. But what they're saying that if they move the school, it'll fix everything. That's not going to fix everything. The pollution's still there. There are still people living by the freeway, even if it's not a bunch of middle schoolers. And so I just want to bring up these things that I don't think get talked about enough, because they're pushing the narrative to be all about the school, but that's not the only problem. That's not the only thing that's wrong with the freeway. And even if they move the school, it's not, I said this already, but even if they move the school, it's not going to stop the pollution. And that's all I wanted to say. Thanks.
Woo! Woo!
Hi, I'm Erskine. I use he, him, they, them pronouns. I would say that that I come here to show solidarity mainly. I'm not really much affected by any of these changes that are going on right now. But before I was born, my house was scheduled to be taken as a part of building. I think it was a highway. I'm not actually entirely clear on the details, through the neighborhood that I live in. And there's a very good chance that my family would have had to find some way to get a new house, even if that was possible at the time. We did not have a lot of capital, and it was difficult for us to get the house that we had. So this is a pattern of long-standing expansion of roadways, networks through Portland that really just failed as basic city design. In a lot of the rest of the world, people have been moving away from building roads in city areas, because when you build a road in city areas, you're creating an extreme point of both danger, congestion, and of just general inefficiency. Almost 85% of traffic deaths take place on roads through city areas, and by networking roads around city areas, we can greatly prevent the damages that have been caused, that can be caused by this. Not even talking about climate impacts or just the general inefficiencies that these programs have. So, in addition to climate-related demands, this also kind of comes as a demand towards a lot of businesses, which tend to profit off of the creation of these roads for transportation services. And particularly in Portland, the Portland Business Alliance, which is headed by companies like Nike, Apple, Google, which claim to be climate advocates, making contrary demands towards our city and kind of dominating our city with these politics. So as a part of that, what we see is a bunch of developments within our city that seem absolutely counterproductive and random, coming from a very targeted and productive to their ends alliance of the PBA. So I just wanted to say that it's not limited to ODOT or to people who don't know what's going on or don't know what our future is. It's also people who very much do know what's going on and choose to ignore it. I think that's it, but thank you all.
I'm Melanie, by the way. I'm Melanie McDonald. I'm 18, and I wrote this as like a satire about society and people who think that climate change either isn't real or isn't important enough to take action. And it's called Climate Change is Free. When I was a kid, I went to this lake all the time. It was beautiful. The water was reflecting on the blue sky, and the birds were chirping, and the fish was jumping, and it takes my breath away. I came back one year, and it was different.
I saw no birds and I saw no fish, and instead of the water reflecting the blue sky, it reflected the flames that were filling the air on the other side of the lake. It took my breath away. Not because of the beauty, but because of the ash that fell onto my skin and into my lungs, the smoke that went into my eyes, amplifying the tears that were already forming. But climate change isn't real, it was a fluke. I swim in the ocean, and I dance with the kelp. I sit with the coral and swim with the shells. But I took a break, I had to work, capitalism. After years though, I dove back into my oasis. There wasn't many fish and the kelp looked sick. But it didn't matter because the coral was beautiful. It used to be pink and purple and all sorts of colors, but now it was white, like a fresh bed of snow. I chose to not pay attention to the fact that the coral, as far as I could see, had died. Coral that's lived hundreds of years, rapidly becoming bleached of their color and life because of tiny changes in average water temperature. Instead, I praised how beautiful their fragile skeletons were, because climate change isn't real. I handed out water to homeless people this summer when Portland reaches 100 degrees by noon. I went out 3 times a day, handing out bikes from cars and handing out water from cars and from my bike. The brakes so hot that they burned my fingers. The sun was so hot that I felt like I was suffocating. These people, laying on the ground for days at a time, too hot and tired to even move. I told them to eat and I told them to drink, trying to assess who had heat exhaustion and who had heat stroke. I watched as they all pitched in their little remaining energy, taking turns carrying a 100-pound dog 4 blocks to a creek so that she could sit in the water so she'd be okay. I walked down the same path later and I saw people laying on either side. I was walking and I was praying that they hadn't died in the last 4 hours since I helped them drink. But that was just an anomaly, because climate change isn't real. I played in 3 feet of snow that came just months before the heat wave. I laughed and enjoyed it because it's nearly unheard of for Portland to get this much snow. I bundled up when our power went out and I treated it like an adventure because it won't happen again, because climate change isn't real. I nearly cried when I wrote this earlier because it's real to me. These are based off of my real experiences, and this is all in my lifetime. I'm only 18, and I'm just a small voice, but that's what we need. We need all these small voices to make big change, because together we can stop climate change.
Pretty hard to follow that up, but I don't have anything eloquent to say because I'm really tired, and that's what I'm going to talk about today, because I know we've kind of talked about this before here, but it's really crazy that 15-year-olds have to be out there every other week just to try to get ODOT to listen, and I mean, they're not even doing that, and it's just really frustrating because today is a super, not today. This week for me is super busy. I had a band concert, I had a choir concert, I took the kids to today, I had a choir dress rehearsal, I have a test on Friday, and I'm super stressed about all of the homework I have to do and all of the other stuff that I have to take care of in my life. And yeah, I'm still out here because I care about this and I like seeing everyone out here, and it's important to me, but I also just wish that we didn't have to be here and ODOT could just listen to us and we could just go home Thank you. Yeah. All right. We want to keep hearing from people, but before we do that, Ida, do you have to? Okay. Do you have all right. Yeah. So, continuation of this open mic. Is there anybody who wants to come up here and just say a few words? This is a great time to just like practice speaking in a microphone in front of people, because it's really not super high stakes. Yeah.
Hi, Jeremy. I'm 17, Cleveland. It's my first time today here on ODOT strike. Excited to be here. I don't really have anything prepared to say, so I'm just gonna, I don't know. Basically, I don't know. I feel like I'm probably preaching in the choir, but over the past summer, after school got out, like I had a little more time to sort of pursue the things that I was interested in, because I didn't have to worry about homework and stuff. So one of the things that I had been interested in was like actually taking a really deep dive into climate science and its effects on societies, and basically I just want to understand, like, really as in-depth as possible the situation that we're in, and it's, I don't know, it's like I've known about climate change for a long time, been concerned about it for a long time. I've been sort of involved in certain activism groups for a while, but I've never really taken the time to understand and really internalize and emotionally connect to what this actually means. So basically over the course of the summer, just went, like, I got a subscription to the Nature journal, the scientific journal, and the Nature Climate Change journal. It's like a bunch of peer-reviewed papers. Just started reading, and of course reading other reports from from the IPCC, the IPBES, that's like the IPCC but for biodiversity, reading reports from government agencies, from and specifically from the military, to try to understand how climate change will exacerbate conflict, and yeah, it's, I don't know, it's kind of basically, at least in my experience, the more you learn about it, the more absolutely terrifying it is. It's like basically over the past 3 months or so, I don't know, I had this sort of vision of, like, before I started to look into this stuff more seriously, I had sort of a vision for, like, what the next 10 or 20 years were going to look like, and how my life's going to be set up. It's just kind of forced me to completely reevaluate everything, and what my life's going to be looking like, and so I guess I'll just talk about a few of, like, the really kind of terrifying things that I found out. And of course, I know I'm preaching to the choir, everyone knows how terrible the situation is, but this is just, like, sort of what I've learned. One of the things that's really terrifying is what's happening in the Arctic, and people have this notion that, like, what happens in the Arctic sort of stays in the Arctic, like, ice just melts and the polar bears die, and then, like, we just go on with our normal lives. But the truth is, the Arctic is basically a keystone for climate stability. It drives the ocean currents, the AMOC current. It reflects a large amount of sunlight from back into the atmosphere, sunlight and heat, and it also acts as this thing I learned about called the latent heat effect. So basically, the melting of ice is like the ice absorbs energy by melting essentially, and when there's no ice, then that heat is just getting absorbed in the ocean. So a few years ago, they thought that we would have what's called a blue ocean event by around the end of the century on our current trajectory. Blue ocean event basically means that for a certain period of time, there's no ice, or effectively no ice, which I think the definition for that is less than 1 million acres or square miles or something of ice in the Arctic Ocean. And so this is like a blue ocean event is a huge red flag, basically a sign that things are getting really out of hand because of the albedo effect. You know, the sunlight, basically the ice reflects sunlight back in the atmosphere, and when you don't have ice on the poles, then all that energy is getting absorbed in the ocean. So yeah, they used to think this was going to happen by around the end of the century. Now the predictions are they've done a probability distribution and found that the most likely date by which there will be a blue ocean event will be 2034. The earliest predicted, like the earliest date which has an above negligible probability is 2023. And basically, you know, I'm not totally sure, but I would think that 2034 is actually probably a pretty conservative estimate, because the more we seem to learn about climate dynamics, the more we find out that our old predictions turn out to be overly conservative. So there's that. I could talk for a long time about what a blue ocean event means, but it's pretty catastrophic. And it's sort of an area of active research, but the peer-reviewed papers that I read, the estimates ranged from within 5 years of the first blue ocean event and a temperature increase in degrees centigrade of 0.2 to 1 degree centigrade of warming after that first blue ocean event, yeah, within 5 years. So that's, I don't know, how long have I been talking? Yeah, so there's blue ocean event. The other really terrifying thing is from the IPBES, that the biodiversity panel, they released a report recently estimating that by 2050, 30 to 50% of all species will be extinct. And so then I've also been learning about sort of the effects that this will be having on our society. Basically, I don't know if you guys heard about the recent the recent report that came out from 6 federal government agencies examining the impacts that it would have on government function. But basically, the conclusion is that within the next 2 decades, climate change will severely impact the ability of the United States government to carry out its duties. And one of the statistics that I thought was particularly frightening from that report was that 25% of all of our critical infrastructure is at high risk of flooding. Then, how long have I been have I been talking for a really long time? I've sort of been going on a rant. Okay, I'm sorry. I'll never mind. I'll just I don't want to take up too much time, but.
All right, Ada, do you have time for an announcement?
Are you live streaming this on Instagram?
This is so loud.
Facebook.
It startles me every time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I am here because I went to Harriet Tubman Middle School, which, as we all know, is right next to I-5. When I was in 7th grade, my teacher
Yes.
had a guest speaker come and
can
tell
have
our
that.
class
Yeah.
that
You bet.
the air pollution outside of our middle school was some of the worst in the state. And I was a 7th grader being told that information, and that was really scary, and I didn't really know what to do with that, knowing that the air that we were breathing at recess that pollution from the diesel emissions had been linked to lung cancer and asthma, and I had friends who were being re-diagnosed with asthma after being at Tubman, and that was in 7th grade. That was 3 years ago, and so now I'm part of Youth versus ODOT, because ODOT still, despite that, knowing that this freeway expansion and the existing freeway is putting middle school students at risk, they're still planning to go through with this freeway expansion. And I talked to Ted Wheeler the other day, and I told him that it was dystopian that kids had to be out here demanding a livable future, and he said, no, no, no. It should be the people who are most impacted who are standing up for the change. That's ridiculous. 7th graders shouldn't need to be waking up at 6 a.m. to go testify at Joint Policy Committee for Transportation meetings. Our leadership thinks that this is okay. They think that this is normal. We're kids. We should not have to be here. Naomi was just talking about that. And yeah, the fact that coming to ODOT is like part of our normal schedules, it's ridiculous. And this shouldn't be on us. This shouldn't be our responsibility as kids. It shouldn't have been my responsibility as a 7th grader. And even though Governor Brown says that she supports plans to move the school, what difference does that make? There are still people living in that neighborhood breathing that pollution. Plus, Harriet Tubman Middle School just moved a few years ago. I was there for that. It was awful for everyone involved. And so PPS right now is being put in a position where they're being asked to choose between keeping their students at the same school breathing the pollution or making everyone move again for the 2nd time in the last 4 years. Either way, it leaves students to suffer the consequences of our government and our leaders valuing freeway expansion over people's safety. And it is dystopian. Ted Wheeler can say whatever he wants about how 7th graders should have to be out there protesting, but that's not true.
Fuck Ted Wheeler! Sorry. It just came out.
Anyways, that's most of what I wanted to say, and I just want to thank you all for continuing to show up. It's been 13 weeks, or it's been 26 weeks. We've been out here for 6 months. This campaign has been going. Yeah, it's a long time, isn't it? Yeah, and we're still here, and we're not going away. And we're just gonna keep fighting and fighting and fighting until ODOT listens, because they will listen eventually. We're gonna make them listen. Yeah. Okay, I have to go catch a bus now, so thank you all.
Thank you, Ada. All right, is there anybody? Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Calliope. I use he, they, she pronouns, and I'm kind of here by coincidence, and I'll explain that like right now. So I just moved here from a place that had 0 public transportation, and that was like intentional, because racism essentially. But when I moved here, by accident, I was like, hey, I need to find people who go to my school. So I followed Ada on Instagram, and then some of my friends started talking about these protests, and now I'm here, and I just wanted to say, like, I think we need to realize that there is a pattern. Like, our governments keep trying to cut these beautiful, thriving communities in half. They keep trying to poison us, and they keep trying to pretend that this is okay, it is dystopian, and it has happened time and time again. This isn't like a one-time thing. This isn't like a one-time thing that ODOT has done. Like, you can see this throughout modern and non-modern, well, sort of modern history. It's horrifying to see, and yeah, I should be like doing my homework, and most of us probably have late work, I know I do. But I'm here, and like, we're in front of a working building, and yeah, we're taking up space, but hey, power to the people. Please listen to us. We'll leave if you listen to us, but I guess, you're not, so, yeah, so, yeah, that's what. Someone's listening to us. Anyway, that was my spiel. There was probably a crash.
Run away, run away.
All right. Do we have anybody else who wants to share? Yeah.
Hi. I don't have much to say, so this might be short, but I'm just gonna kind of reiterate what I've heard a lot of other people say, and I kind of really resonate with because I relate to a lot of it. Being, I was a 7th grader in high school, in middle school when Ada talked about the speaker coming and telling us we were likely to get asthma or lung cancer because of where we go to school and how we participate in the community, which was not great to hear as a 7th grader. And I think the main reason why I'm here is like trying to make actual change, because we've all heard about the statistics, we know about the problems with climate change, we know about the people that are affected at a disproportionate rate, but we're here because we want to actually do something about that and make a change. So what we're trying to get at is that ODOT needs to actually change something, but standing out here and like using our time, our free time, our time that we could be doing homework or resting from doing SAT prep all day and then SATs and standing out in the cold. I'm freezing and very tired and I want to go home, but I feel like I have a responsibility to be here and protest and tell ODOT to not cut communities in half, which shouldn't be happening. That's like ridiculous. I am a sophomore in high school. I forgot to say my name. My name's Kira. I go by she, they pronouns, and I am a sophomore in high school. This should not be happening. I should not be having to stand here and protest and do my best to like not freak out about how I'm going to have to adjust my future and plan my future around this dystopian reality that I live in right now. I feel like the last few years have been kind of dystopian anyways because of, you know, the whole pandemic thing and also the approaching reality of climate change. And so I think, kind of like wrapping it up, I feel like I'm rambling, but I should not be here. I should not have to be here. I should not be worried about it. I should not be having to learn about it in school and hoping that somebody who has actual power decides to do something about it.
All right, thank you. I'm gonna let other people share in a minute, but before that, as people start to leave, can everybody take out their phones and look around? Who is not here? That's who you're gonna text. I want you to text 3 people that are not here today that you wanna see here in 2 weeks. I think, let me look at my calendar unless somebody else has the date of the next one. Okay, the 27th. Can everybody here text 3 people, at least, 3 of your friends, text them and ask them to come on October 27th to the ODOT Region 1 headquarters. The address is on the building right there, 4:30 to 6, and say, I want you to come with me, make a plan, and we can triple our population outside of ODOT. So I'll give you all a minute to do that now.
Yeah. They stink. They stink.
Micah, will you sing?
I'd love to sing. There's one thing I'd like to say though first, and I know I already gave this speech, but after listening to all of the different types of ways people are talking about the climate crisis, it's really amazing. And I want to offer something that I learned in college, which is a strategy framework for a just transition. So, you know, for the scientists in this group, for the historians in this group, for the artists in this group, for the urban planners, a strategy framework for a just transition is the way to get out of this moment. We've talked a lot about this moment and the impacts that it's had, and the ways that our infrastructure are failing us, and a strategy framework for a just transition from this world that we live in to one where we can confidently say that we are safe. It takes us continuing to talk the way we're talking, you know, in artistic terms and scientific terms, but with the same moral grounding, and centering regenerative ideas and economic views. Yeah, what song do you guys want to sing? Which side are you on? Oh, the kids? Okay. Well, I don't need a microphone for that one. If you don't know it, just follow along. We do the same part. And there are some verses, and some people know them better than others, but
Green New Deal is what we need. Hey, ODOT, can't you see a what we need.
What do we want? No more freeways. When do we want it? Now. What do we want?
No more freeways.
When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
No more freeways.
When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
No more freeways.
When do we want it?
Now.
Clean air. What do we want?
Clean air.
When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
Clean air.
When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
Clean air.
When do we want it?
Now.
Impact statement. What do we want?
Impact statement.
When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
Impact statement.
When do we want it?
Now.
Hey, hey, ho, ho. Freeway expansion's got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho. Freeway expansion's got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho. Freeway expansion's got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho. Freeway expansion's got to go. Fossil fuels. Hey, hey, ho, ho. Fossil fuels have got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho. Fossil fuels have got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho. Fossil fuels have got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho. Fossil fuels have got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho. Fossil fuels have got to go. Woo! Woo! Everybody!
All right. Thank you, everybody. So I think it's about 5:50. So we have like 10 minutes. If anybody else wants to share, you're welcome to like come on up now. Is anybody wanting to share? All right. Well, if you do feel like you want to share any more, you're welcome to. But otherwise, it's been a lot of listening. So thank you all for respectfully listening. It's been awesome to have so many different perspectives sharing today. And thank you all for being here. Look at the birds. That's so pretty. All right. So yeah, we can just take the final time to just hang out, talk to people. Thank you all for coming. Really appreciate it.